Hair is super important to me.
Christine's first wedding dress, it was very modest, as was appropriate in our culture.
I feel invigorated. Like I'm 55 and finally stepping into a new chapter of my life, one I never thought I'd live, but am now fully embracing. It's a feeling I didn't expect. This excitement for change, this pulse of growth. Even though I know deep down that change and growth are terrifying. They shake the ground beneath your feet, force you to let go of comfort zones you've clung to for years. But once you finally let go, you realize it's the only way to truly start living. That's where I am now. For the first time in a long time, I'm not adjusting myself for someone else. I'm not trying to force a square peg into a round hole, not living in two different realities anymore. I used to live one life when he wasn't around a schedule I loved. Simple dinners without allergy lists or weird food restrictions, peaceful evenings, and a rhythm that made me feel like myself. But then he'd show up every third day and everything would shift, like stepping into an alternate universe I never fully fit into. I played the part, tried to be accommodating, tried to mold myself into a wife who could juggle everything. And for a long time, I did it. I adjusted and compromised and made space. But it was exhausting. And now, not having to do that anymore, it's a freedom I didn't know I craved until I tasted it. It's liberating, sad in a way, the kind of sadness that creeps in when you realize how much of yourself you gave away trying to make something work. I used to scramble to make time for him, to rearrange everything just to squeeze in a few hours. But now I realize that was never real love, it was performance. It was survival. And the truth is, I would do plural marriage again, but only if it worked the way it was supposed to. When it functions correctly, plural marriage is a beautiful thing, a big, interconnected family, a sense of community, a deep bond of trust. You're plugged into something larger than yourself. You have your independence, your space, your autonomy, and yet you're still part of a team. That was the dream. That's what I signed up for. But somewhere along the way, that dream turned into a nightmare. And I'm okay now. I'm at peace. It's not the life I envisioned, but it's the one I'm finally good with that. I look back on my old life and it feels like a faded photographs. Something that existed, that mattered, but no longer applies. It's strange to feel so detached from a life I once clung to, but it's also a relief, because peace is better than pretending. And yet, it's complicated. More complicated for me than for anyone else. I have ties that aren't just emotional, they're spiritual, they're physical. The land, the commitments, the promises I made not just to him, but to God, to our children, to the life we were supposed to build together. And then there's Robyn, her presence, her narrative, her constant positioning as the sacrificial lamb in a family that, according to her, ever appreciated her. But that's not how I remember it. That's not the truth I lived. Robyn has a victim complex, and I say that with empathy, not cruelty. Some people survive by casting themselves as the one wronged. It's how they make sense of the world. But for the rest of us, it feels like manipulation. My kids, they're angry not just at him, but at her. They feel like every word they said got twisted, every action misinterpreted, like they were walking on eggshells that she herself laid. And when your kids feel like they can't trust someone who's supposed to be a mother figure, that fractures everything. And Robyn might genuinely believe she was mistreated. But if that's true, it's because she lost our respect, not because we hated her. She was favored, undeniably so, and we all saw it. Dad bent over backwards for her and her kids while we were just trying to keep the family afloat. So, no, I don't believe we treated her like dirt. I think she told herself that story because it gave her power and maybe even permission to isolate us further. My biggest heartbreak now, not him, not Robyn, it's the loss of relationships with the kids, hers and mine. Aurora was once like a little sister to me. Dayton and I shared real moments, and now it's like none of it existed. And as much as I want to believe those bonds can be repaired, I'm not hopeful. Not when there's been so much triangulation, so much ego stroking, so much manipulation. Gabriel, he's accepted it. He's come to terms with the fact that his father isn't going to be the man he needed. And that's the peace I want for all of them. For all my kids. I hope they all find it. I hope they realize that they don't need anyone's approval to be whole. As for me, I had my moment with Himtha. One where I sat him down, calmly and firmly, and told him what he was doing. Told him he was hurting us. And instead of hearing me, he lashed out. Said I wasn't loyal, said I was just like my mother. And in that moment, I knew it wasn't about family. It wasn't about love. It was about control. Respect and loyalty, he uses those words now like weapons. But once upon a time, it was about compassion, about being a team. Now it's about obedience, about bending to his will or being labeled a traitor. And I don't play that game. Anymore, I'm done. I'm truly done. But it wasn't always easy. I stuck it out for as long as I did because the kids were still home, because I didn't want to shatter their world. But once he stopped being the kind of father who made that sacrifice worth it, I knew it was time to do something different. To live differently? And now, here I am, navigating holidays alone, making lunch plans with a man I once shared my life with, just to finalize a financial mess born from our collapse. A note is due. Bills unpaid, responsibilities unshared. Communication, gone. Cooperation, non-existent. And I sit across from him now, hoping maybe foolishly that he'll come with something real. A plan, a shred of accountability. But I don't trust Isley anymore. So I've made my own plans. Legal ones, if necessary. I've talked to lawyers. I've started preparing because I can't afford to sit around hoping he'll do the right thing. Not anymore. Not after everything. Because peace isn't just about letting go tits about. Standing up for yourself, and I'm finally doing that. I'm no longer the woman waiting at home, hoping to be chosen. I'm choosing myself, choosing freedom, choosing happiness. And that might be the bravest thing I've ever done.
Back out. Kody used to have just this smooth and easy relationship with all his kids. They always wanted to seek him out and talk to him.
So, what's the occasion? What's going on? It's not like this kind of conversation comes up often anymore between us. And honestly, I wasn't sure you'd even sit down and talk. But here we are. I know you've been avoiding the discussions around the property, the looming deadlines, the financial ties we still have to one another, like this last frayed thread keeping us connected when everything else has already unraveled. But we need to talk. We need to face it because this isn't something we can ignore into disappearing. It's almost February already. It's time slipping fast, and we only have about 3.5 months before that balloon payment is due. If we don't have the cash to pay it off, if we don't come up with a plan that could take the whole property back, just like that. Gone. Coyote Pass, with all its potential and its burden, could be ripped from our hands because we signed a bad contract. Because we made decisions that were short-sighted and emotionally driven. We weren't smart. We weren't united. And Christine Shea walked away and gave up her stake by trading the equity in her home for the equity in Coyote Pass, leaving just for owners to clean up the wreckage. Now we're sitting here staring at each other with no plan, no cooperation, just fragments of what used to be a family. And Janelle mimes saying, we've got to pay it off. We've got to be responsible. But I can see it in your eyes, Kody. You don't want to do me any favors. I get it. You're holding on to bitterness, maybe resentment. Maybe you're still mad I didn't stay in line. Mad I stopped being the version of me that made you feel like a king. But this isn't about doing favors, it's about facing reality. Still, I'm not surprised when you look at me and say, are you interested in buying me out? Because, of course. That's where this was heading. Forget the history. Forget the memories or the years. This is transactional now. And I ask, what about us? What about you and me? And you shrugged. You don't even flinch when you say it. You say we don't exist in the same universe anymore. And you're right. We don't. I live in a world where peace and independence matter. You live in a world where loyalty and submission are demanded, not earned. I still think you're awesome in some distant, detached way. And yeah, when we talk, I feel that old hook, just a flicker of what we used to be. But I've been so happy without you, and that happiness is real. It's not forced. It's not built on trying to be someone I'm not, just to keep a marriage on life support. I don't see a long-term future for us, and maybe that's the hardest thing to say out loud, but it's the truth. And it's not that we haven't talked, we've had plenty of conversations, but none that were real, none that dug deep into what we've lost or what we've broken. We've said, it's done, we're not compatible. And you've agreed. So why are we circling back like there's still a version of us to salvage? It feels like a diversion tactic. Like maybe if we talk about the relationship, we can delay the reality of the financial mess we're in. But I'm not playing that game anymore. You want a wife who acts a certain way, obedient, soft-spoken, deferential, and I've never been her. So it's over. It's really over. I don't need a courtroom declaration or a dramatic final scene. I just need to move forward. And speaking of forward, I've been working on something big, something hopeful, something rooted in peace instead of chaos. For a long time, this idea has been growing in my heart, and now it's finally coming to life. It's so big that I caught myself falling into old habits, thinking I should tell you and Christine. Not because I want approval, God, no, but because this was once the kind of thing we'd celebrate together. But anyway, I shared it. Maddie and I, we've been looking for land, for a dream, for a space to build something meaningful. We looked in Montana, we looked in North Carolina. We had setback offers that fell through, pieces of land that were snatched up before we got there, but we didn't give up. And now, nuts happening. We put in an offer on 165 acres in North Carolina, and it was accepted. That's right. It's real. It's ours. If everything goes through on, there's no reason it shouldn't. We're going to be flower farmers. I know. It sounds romantic, almost silly to some people. But after everything we've been through, doesn't it sound like the perfect kind of zen? Spend your days surrounded by blooms instead of bitterness. I was lying in bed one night and it just came to me. Flowers, I thought. Wouldn't it be beautiful to just be a flower farmer? After the noise, the tension, the betrayals, the unspoken wounds, that kind of peace sounded like salvation. And you know what? There's a big business in North Carolina. There's a real demand. So we want to do flowers. Yes, but also maybe build a few little cabins, places people can come and stay. Maybe we'll even create an event space or a retreat center, a sanctuary, something that reflects the life I want now, something filled with peace, joy, and color. 165 acres, that's a lot better than the 2. Maybe 4 acres I would have ended up with on Coyote Pass. That dream was never mine. Not really, it was forced, negotiated, sacrificed. But this new dream, it's mine. It's ours. Built from the ground up, not borrowed from a vision I was never invited to truly shape. So here we are, you and I sitting in the fallout of what used to be. You're talking buyouts. I'm talking flowers. That should tell us everything we need to know. I don't hate you, Kody. I just don't know you anymore. You're a stranger who carries the echoes of a man I once loved. A man I tried so hard to build a life with, to believe in. But I can't keep carrying the weight of that past anymore. It's time for something new. And whether you walk beside me or away from MIT doesn't matter. Going anyway.
In some regards, especially coming from the culture that we come from, he's a failure to have lost all his marriages, except for the one.
My original plan, what I had pictured when we first moved here, when we looked out at the raw, dusty beauty of Coyote Pass and dreamed as a family. As a unit, was to take my section of the land and build greenhouses. I saw it so clearly in my mind, rows of flowers blooming under glass, protected, nurtured, cultivated. I wanted to grow beauty, peace, life, something vibrant and real that I could touch and care for with my own hands. I imagined myself spending the rest of my life doing that. I didn't know if it would be forever, but at least it felt like something that was mine. Something that made sense after years of trying to mold myself into spaces I didn't fit. But it never happened. Not really. Because while I was planning and dreaming and trying to make things happen, Kody was always indifferent. Always one. Foot in, 1 foot out. He never said yes, never said let's do it, never said I believe in this too. And that makes a difference. You can only chase a shared dream on your own for so long before you realize it was never shared. In the first place, he had his own comfort zone, his own life already set with Robyn in that house and the property. The dream, the collective vision we all had, started to fade away. Life happened. Disappointment happened. Distance crept in. And what we thought? We would build together what we promised each other just never came to fruition. But here's the thing. Sometimes doors close and they hurt. But other times, doors close and you realize you've been standing in the wrong hallway all along. This new chapter, this new vision is infinitely better. Because now I'm finally accomplishing something that was truly my own. Maddie and I were finally doing it. We're making it real. This isn't just about planting flowers. It's about building a life rooted in peace and intention. And the best part is this dream. This place, it already feels like home. We put in an offer on 165 acres in North Carolina and it was accepted. It's happening. We're going to be flower farmers. And it's more than just a business seats a life. I remember laying in bed one night after all the heartache, the disappointment, the countless nights of silence and avoidance, and just thinking, what if I could grow something beautiful? What if my next chapter wasn't about fixing anything or anyone, but just about flourishing on my own? And the thought came like a whisper flowers. What if I became a flower farmer? It sounded ridiculous at first, like a line out of a book. But the more I sat with it, the more it felt like peace. And now it's real. It's not just an idea. We have land. We have a plan. We even have dreams of adding cabins on the property, little retreats for people to come and find rest. Maybe even a big gathering space, a retreat center, something that brings people together with nature and healing and stillness. We haven't figured out every detail, but we know the foundation is solid. Flowers, a place for people to come, a place to be. And when I think back to Coyote Pass, those 2 or maybe 4 acres, I would have ended up with, after all the compromises, can't help but smile. Because this is better, bigger, freer. Today's the day. I'm moving. Really moving. Not just boxes and furniture, but my whole life. Everything is changing. I packed the last few things into the truck, nervously checking that desk that I'm so sure is going to shift during the drive. I'm scared to drive it, honestly. It's a big truck and this is a big move. But this isn't just a relocation. It's a transformation. And Christine and David, God bless them, said they'd come. Help. That support, it means more than words. I'll still have Garrison, Gabriel, and Savannah in Flagstaff. And that's the hard part. That's the ache. Can I really live without these big mountains I've grown so used to? The trails, the views, the quiet beauty of this place. It's been home for a long time. I love Flagstaff. Love everything about it. The small town feel, the wide open spaces, the fresh air. But I'm ready. Suddenly, I'm ready. Maybe it's because this new life is now more than a dream. It's an actual, tangible choice. And sometimes that's all you need to say goodbye, too. Know where you're going is finally better than what you're leaving behind. I'm excited. I'm intimidated. I'm full of emotion, okay? And I'm biting off something big, really big. This is no small venture. Maddie, Caleb, and I, we've bought more than 150 acres. And it's not just a farm, it's a foundation, a fresh start, a new chapter. I didn't know I needed this badly. We're going to build homes, plant flowers, raise our children in a space that breathes healing and hope. So here I am, sitting in this moment that's equal parts goodbye and hello. The truck is loaded. The last hugs have been given. Ready to roll out? They ask. And I say yes. You say it through a lump in my throat, through tears and hope and nerves. Ready to roll out. Because I am. Because it's time. I've been waking up at 3 a.m. every night lately, heart racing, mind spinning. And not because I'm unsure, but because I know the weight of this. Because I understand the magnitude of walking away from everything I once tried so hard to save. I've spent summers in Florida with my grandparents. I know the Southeast. I love the Southeast, but I've never lived there, never truly made it my own, until now. And that's what makes it big. That's what makes it brave. I'm not running, I'm rebuilding. I'm not escaping, I'm choosing something better. Coyote Pass was a vision. But this is a reality. And maybe, just maybe, it took everything falling apart to finally find the pieces I was meant to build with. So yes, I'm sad to be leaving, but I'm even more excited to be going. And no matter what comes next, I'm ready. I'm ready.
It's awkward, when Ari's asking why I'm leaving. Everybody wonders. She's just...
After a long, exhausting day of driving across unfamiliar roads, navigating between dusty highways and small towns that all seemed to blend together in the haze of road fatigue. The only thing we all wanted was some rest and a hot meal. Anything. That felt like comfort. Truly, however, was absolutely peopled out. That was her exact phrase. She was just done for the de-emotionally spent and needing solitude. So she decided to stay behind at the hotel while the rest of us headed out in search of something warm, comforting, and maybe just a little indulgent. Dinner was easy, familiar. But then Christine, with that mischievous glint in her eye that only comes out when she's really in the mood to break rules. Or at least bend them turned to David and me with a grin that said, let's take this night a little further. She wanted to go to a bar and David was all in. Now, you have to understand, I'm the kind of woman who's always been good. Not good as in dull, but good as in dependable. The rule follower, the one who tries to always stay in the lines because that's where safety is. That's where approval used to be. I'd been raised in a deeply religious environment where alcohol was taboo, coffee was forbidden, and even questioning the rules too deeply could get you into spiritual trouble. Yeah, a bar. Not exactly my habitat. Still, I went. Something about the laughter. The way Christine and David nudged me out of my comfort zone with affection rather than pressure. It made me feel like maybe I could let go for just a night. At the bar, I laughed nervously, confessing to David that I didn't even know how to order a drink. Like, really, do you just wave someone down? Is there a menu? Do you shout over the music or quietly wait your turn like at a pharmacy? It's funny now, but in that moment, I felt a bit like a teenager all over again. Entering a world I'd only seen through the safety of TV shows and other people's stories. David teased me playfully, saying he wasn't going to let me off. With a dainty glass of wine, we're doing shots, he said, or maybe 5. My eyes widened shots me, but I found myself smiling. I'd never done a shot in my life. Not once. And I wasn't lying when I said that. I grew up in the church. We weren't even allowed to sip alcohol at weddings. Years went by and the emotional and spiritual distance between us and that tight-knit congregation grew. Little compromises crept in. Glass of wine at dinner, champagne at a celebration. Then, slowly, the rigid lines blurred, and the world beyond the church didn't seem so dangerous anymore. Still, a bar, doing shots. That felt like crossing into a different reality. Christine laughed and insisted, "This isn't a tea party, Janelle." And maybe it wasn't, but maybe my life needed to be something other than a tea party for once. David leaned in and said, "You've got to try this one. It's called a slippery nipple." The name made me choke on my laughter, but I said, "Okay, I'm going to jump into the deep end. Might as well go all in." "Butterscotch and Baileys," he said. "Sweet, smooth, easy on a beginner." I nervously held the shot glass, heart racing, hands slightly trembling, not from fear exactly, but from unfamiliarity, the unknown. The symbolic weight of this tiny glass felt enormous. I can do this, I told myself. This isn't a big deal. But of course it was, because that little shot glass represented more than just a drink. It was shedding a skin I'd worn my entire adult life. Christine smiled and raised her glass, and we all said, "Cheers, new beginnings, new adventures, Moab, life, freedom." And then 1, 2, 3, the drink burned, sweet and smooth, and I didn't cough or spit it out like I feared I would. I swallowed it all in one go, just like they said, and the feeling that followed was not just from the liquor, was from the realization that I had done something new, something brave, something un-Janelle. Christine and David whooped and clapped, and I laughed with them, its taste still lingering on my tongue like caramel and possibility. "That was good," I said, genuinely surprised. It was. Not just the flavor, but the experience. The rebellion. The intimacy of trust between friends, between chosen family, between people who see the version of you you're still learning to embrace. We sat in that bar in Louisiana, and I looked around at the soft amber lighting, the distant hum of music, the laughter of strangers, the clinking of glasses, and I thought how strange and beautiful life is. A year ago, even 6 months ago, I wouldn't have seen myself here. But here I was, not hiding, not trying to be invisible, not shrinking myself for anyone else's comfort. And in that exact moment, I realized my life was about to change radically. Not just because of a drink, not just because of a bar, but because I was finally choosing me. For so long, I'd been someone's wife, someone's mother, someone's second choice. I lived in the margins, balancing everyone else's needs before my own, telling myself that was loyalty, that was strength, that was faith. And in many ways it was. But it was also loss. The loss of my own voice, my own joy, my own spontaneity. Sitting in that bar, taking a shot for the first time in 55 years. I felt like I was finally waking up to a life I actually wanted. Theirs. Something empowering about stepping into newness, messy, unpredictable, delicious newness. Because change and growth are scary, yes, and most of us would rather retreat into the comfort of what we know. But what if comfort is just another name for stuck? What if the scariest place is the most fertile ground for joy? The truth is, the moment you stop being afraid of letting go is the moment you start to live fully, authentically. And no, this doesn't mean I'm going to become a wild party girl doing shots every night. That's not me either.